Recently, I was looking over a list of companies on the Fortune 500, and I was pretty pleased with myself for recognizing many of these businesses. I mean, I should, right? These are the companies making the highest revenues in the US and employing the greatest number of people. The list is filled with companies like Apple, General Motors, AT&T, HP, Boeing, and Microsoft, who have all created great brands that consumers all over the world can identify with. In addition, there are all these other great retailers like Walmart, CVS, Costco, Kroger, and Amazon that don't necessarily create a product, but they have branded themselves to the point that consumers expect a great and consistent shopping experience from them. But then I came across a group of companies that I'm not really familiar with, particularly one that was present in this top 5 list, meaning it was one of the largest companies in the US in terms of total revenues. How could I not know of this company? My frustration led to research in which I discovered they were a distributor. This company creates no product, does not sell to the end consumer, yet is worth billions of dollars, and is one of the largest companies in the world. How is this possible? Hello, my name is Greg Maloney, and I'm going to discuss the reason for wholesalers, distributors, and other intermediaries, and how they can create efficiencies and value for many different types of businesses. These intermediaries are a key component in the supply chain process, but only one part of the process. They exist between the manufacturer and the retailer, and typically they change nothing in the product during the time it's in their possession. So why do we have them? Well, first of all, what is the difference between a wholesaler, a distributor, and any other potential agents that are between the manufacturer and the retailer? Well, let's take a look at this. A wholesaler is a reseller of manufactured goods. They provide warehousing and other trade abilities that the manufacturer doesn't really want to provide. But other than that, they essentially just help move, store, and then move the product again to get it closer to the consumer. They are making purchases almost exclusively in bulk in order to gain volume discounts directly from the manufacturer and then selling to another intermediary like another retailer or maybe another middleman like another wholesaler, but almost never to the end consumer. These businesses are essentially used to satisfy demand from retailers, and other than storage and inventory, they offer little more value add. Their primary source of income is achieved through the discount they receive from buying products in bulk and then selling for a higher margin. Now, a distributor, on the other hand, acts as a sales representative to the company, in addition to passively fulfilling orders from retailers. Distributors are typically contractually based with manufacturers and producers. The primary source of income for distributors is based on the services they provide to promote and sell the products, as well as the sharing of margins with the manufacturer. Distributors also rarely, if ever, and this is usually only under very special circumstances, end up selling to the end user. And they are also situated between the producer and the retailer. Any other intermediary, such as a subjobber, agent, broker, whatever, is essentially an additional middleman in the process between the manufacturer and the retailer. These businesses can provide similar services as wholesalers. They can buy from a wholesaler at a bulk discount in order to resell to retailers. They can make purchases to provide areas that the distributor does not cover, or they can provide other value-added services. For example, a distributor may have a contract to sell a product exclusively in one town, but there's a small part of this town that is predominantly of Japanese descent. This group of consumers prefers to do business in their native Japanese and also has a slightly different approach to business negotiations. Well, a subjobber who has expertise in these Japanese business processes and the Japanese language could effectively expand reach of this business beyond the capability of the original distributor by buying large amounts from that distributor at a discount and then reselling them to this other group of customers at a higher margin. One important aspect that is common to all of these types of intermediaries is that they do not touch the end consumer in any way. Well, why is this important? Because sales taxes are required to be paid only once on a new product. Therefore, resale exemptions allow these intermediaries to operate without having to charge sales tax, as long as they are not buying for consumption or they are not selling to the ultimate consumer. So, why would a business want to use these intermediaries? Doesn't it seem like a huge amount of additional work and processes that are happening? How is this at all efficient, and how can this help a company actually make more money instead of having the negative effect of just reducing margin? Well, this is where the math comes in. Let's look at an example where there are 5 manufacturers producing different products that all want their presence in the top 10 retail locations in a busy metropolitan city. If each of the manufacturers ship to each of the retailers, there are now 50 points of communication and transportation. That's each of the 5 manufacturers that are speaking with and delivering to each of the 10 retailers. But if there's a wholesaler in the middle, then the number of touch points is magically reduced to only 15. Now, each manufacturer only has to have 1 point of communication and transportation, which is to the single wholesaler in the middle. And each retailer only has 1 point of communication and transportation also to the single wholesaler right in the middle. Even if there's 2 wholesalers, the number of touch points is still reduced from that original 50 to just 30. This is essentially the main benefit provided by intermediaries in the supply chain process. This is how they create efficiencies. Now, it gets a little more complicated than that. These wholesalers can also accept or order large amounts of products, typically pallets, which makes the manufacturer's shipping process much more streamlined and efficient. And then they break these larger orders down to the smaller amounts that are typically demanded by each retailer. They can also pool resources in shipping. One manufacturer may not be able to fill an entire truck when shipping to a single retailer, leaving all this empty space in the truck, which is really an inefficient use of that truck as a resource. But wholesalers, they can group multiple products from multiple manufacturers when shipping to a retailer and effectively fill this entire truck with no wasted resources. If that wholesaler is actually a distributor and provides more value-add services, this can also provide a great value and efficiency to the process. The manufacturer that wants to sell to each of these 10 retailers in the city, well, they need to spend resources on sales, maybe even deploy local resources in this town. But the distributor may already have direct relationships with these retailers. And that distributor can provide the sales force needed for the manufacturer. From the retailer's perspective, there's also great efficiencies. Why does that retailer want to speak with and negotiate with 5 different salespeople from each of these manufacturers when they can just address all their needs and place orders from just one salesperson from that single distributor in the middle? This is one of the biggest reasons for distributor success in businesses where there are multiple products. Take grocery stores, for example. They can carry anywhere from 15,000 to 60,000 SKUs. Can you imagine a grocery buyer communicating and negotiating with salespeople from each and every one of these companies? Distributor efficiencies are critical in these types of businesses just to keep transactions manageable. Okay, so now we see why these intermediaries make sense, right? But not all companies are using them. Coca-Cola owns many of its local distributors, and Walmart has many of its own warehouses in key local markets. Why wouldn't these businesses want to use intermediaries and take advantage of the topics that we just discussed? Well, the first reason may be quite obvious. In the situation of Walmart, they're big enough to take advantage of all the benefits provided by distributors internally just for themselves. And they really don't need all the value added provided by distributors, but they only need warehousing and inventory control one would typically get from just a basic wholesaler. Next, think about the value created by distributor salespeople and the efficiencies from sharing loads within trucks for shipping. Could there possibly be a downside to that? Well, if the distributor sales force is selling my product, aren't they also selling a bunch of other products? And maybe some of those other products are actually my competitors. So which ones are they focusing on? And is my product getting the attention that it needs? On top of that, they may not know my product as well as my salespeople, and they're going to require constant training to keep on top of the advantages that my product can offer to the consumer. And if a retailer doesn't want a full truckload of my product and they're happy to combine the order with other products in order to maintain that efficient shipment that we talked about, doesn't that make it likely for them to purchase less of my product? Having limitations and minimum order requirements for retailers is actually sometimes a good strategy for driving your product. If the retailer has more inventory of your product on hand, aren't they going to be more likely to focus on selling it? So now we see why there are intermediaries in channel marketing. These intermediaries are also evolving drastically as technology changes, and the value they can provide to manufacturers and retailers is also evolving. When deciding which intermediaries to use for your business, you must ask yourself, what do I need in order to expand the reach of my business? How much do I need to control? And how much can I take advantage of resources from others that may not be completely focused on my business? From there, you can develop the right intermediary strategy to make your company more successful.